Welcome back. You're watching The Press Preview. With me tonight, writer and researcher, my good fellow, and author and journalist Benedict Spence. And we may be still just about in the holiday period. Well, we are today, aren't we? New Year's Day. But Brexit still features in the papers. Of course, looking ahead to next week, debates starting on Theresa May's deal. But the Financial Times has gone with a survey of economists, hasn't it? And what they think is likely to happen to the economy this year.
I mean, nothing's really changed when it comes to this. Every couple of weeks we have a survey of economists who always say it's going to be an unmitigated disaster, based just on predictions, frankly. But what I think is very interesting about this article is the first word in the opening paragraph, which is uncertainty. That's actually what it is. It's not necessarily that there is going to be, that it might be a no-deal Brexit or Brexit with a plan. It's the fact that we don't know yet what the plan is going to be that is causing the issues, that is causing the fluctuations in the markets. That's really why we're suffering, is the lack of a concrete plan or backup plan, the fact that we seem to be going into this blind. That's what I would say is possibly the most damaging thing. Although, of course, looking at the article, it doesn't say that it is necessarily going to be a disaster, because if you look in the middle, it says best outcome is growth of 1.5%. That's still actually higher than some Eurozone countries. You know, and that's even in the event of a supposedly disastrous no-deal Brexit. Look in the top right-hand corner. It says, happy 20th birthday to the euro. And it says underneath, the Eurozone has yet to come of age, which is a very polite way of saying it's been an unmitigated disaster. One need only look at the disparity between Germany and the northern European countries and southern European countries, the massive levels of unemployment and debt in those nations, to see that actually it is not necessarily a given that being part of the European Union and part of that economic union is a good thing.
And yet, the headline, Brexit bad or awful for prospects in the year ahead, say top economists, doesn't sound great. If you're a supporter of the Leave campaign, you're not going to want to read that headline.
No, and I think that if we're talking about unmitigated disasters, I think that the Brexit negotiations thus far from this end have been pretty disastrous. And I think a lot of us will have gone home for Christmas and tried to press pause on the Brexit discussions, because it is very divisive, and we're all, quite frankly, quite sick of it. And it really is, there is a lot of uncertainty. And I think what this is telling us, yes, we're hearing this a lot, and yes, we're hearing this a lot from papers like the Financial Times, but that is because we are still in total disarray and we do not know what is going to happen. We're going to see MPs come back into Parliament in the coming weeks, and the discussion will start again around Theresa May's Brexit deal, which it looks very difficult for her to get through Parliament. So I think that this is an indication for us. The rest of the front pages have kind of avoided Brexit to some degree. This is kind of a reminder of what is going to be sucking all the air out of the room in the coming weeks as we move forward. It's not looking great, and I think that a lot of people around the country are not only tired of this, but they do not feel very confident about the government's capabilities of negotiating this and getting it through Parliament.
Well, I would say that that's worth remembering, though. I think that it's a lack of confidence in the government, not necessarily in Brexit in of itself, though perhaps that's an argument for another time.
Yeah, OK, yes, because we're going to try and crack on, and there'll be plenty more Brexit from next week, no doubt, when Parliament is back. Let's take a quick look at the front page of the Daily Mirror next. And this is an interview that's been given by a man who said he was desperate because he says his payments didn't come through.
Yeah, so this is another story about universal credit and the delayed payments, frankly, the mess that has been universal credit, the mess in its rollout. And this man said that he tried to kill himself because then the quote from him is that he thought his life insurance was more likely to pay out in time to help his family. This kind of story is incredibly alarming, and we're seeing people up and down the country risk destitution, facing destitution because of the delays in payment and really the botched rollout of universal credit. And I think that this is a reminder that the government they haven't been so willing to move back from this when there is a lot of alarm bells ringing from people's lives are really being affected in a negative way.
Do you agree with that, the handling of this? Because the government maintains that it's still an improvement on a very complicated system, and ultimately that it will be an improvement.
Well, first of all, I would say that this is an isolated case, and I don't know this person's individual circumstances. It would be wrong to necessarily take this as an example of all universal credit cases. That said, as you said, we are often actually hearing quite a lot of these sorts of stories of people in very desperate situations having to make very tough choices because they aren't receiving their payments. And I would say, the main thing I would say is whether or not it was a good idea in principle, really bad timing if you're going through the whole upheaval of trying to exit the European Union to try to roll this out when you've got other things going on.
We do have to leave it there. I'm afraid we're all out of time, and we'll have to talk about political fireworks in the next hour. But Maya and Benedict, thanks both very much indeed.